What's up, guys? It's your boy RedCloud. We are back with another Cleric guide. This is a redefined Cleric guide 2.0. Pretty much we have gotten almost all the way to 2K as a Cleric on the Korean server, and we have learned a lot. Okay, the gameplay style has changed dramatically. I've redefined like what it means to be a Cleric for me as a person, and I've also done a lot of research as far as like what the #1 ranked Clerics are doing. Obviously they are, spending a lot of money in the game, so that their stats and like what they prioritize are a lot different. I've been doing a lot of Transcendence runs, PvE content, some PvP we're going to discuss as well, but mainly it's going to be for PvE. Eventually we will be doing PvP, so if you guys ever want a PvP Cleric guide, let me know in the comment section below, because I would love to do that for you guys. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Alright guys, so I've been playing on Korea and we have managed to get to 1900. Today I plan on hitting 2K on stream, so it's a good time to actually go ahead and like the video, subscribe for more content like this, and also come check out the live stream. I'm live every single day on Twitch and here on YouTube. Alright guys, I'm going to do this in a brief way because I don't want to like have this video be like 54 minutes long like my last Cleric video, but all of these actual skills and the way it's done is subjective, and it's all going to depend on your level, how many Daevanion points you have, how many passive skills you have on your gear, etc., etc. This is just a rough draft, okay? So don't take this to heart. But I have seen that most high-end clerics are pretty much essentially running content like this, okay? So even in PvP, they focus like the main things, which are their healing spells. Okay, that's the #1 priority most of all. And then of course, if they can manage to get some of the other damage skills as high as possible, they will do it, because clerics are actually really, really good in PvP at higher levels. So, and if you have PvP content gear, of course. But the majority of the gameplay is based around healing, keeping people alive, keeping yourself alive, and pretty much essentially being the best support in the entire game. So I'm going to explain everything real quick. I'm going to assume that you have been playing your Cleric, okay, so you understand a literal general gist of what the spells and passives do, okay? So first and foremost, Earth's Retribution's level 8 because we get 20% MP restored, and pretty much it allows us to get MP every time we auto attack, okay? So Earth's Judgment Thunder, we want this to get this as max as possible because we can inflict a root, reduce combat speed, or if you want it to do more damage, you can. It's pretty much our main filler damaging ability. Because this one has such a low cooldown and it turns into Divine Punishment, these abilities do quite a bit of damage overall, and essentially they are the only one, that's one of the only abilities that you'll ever have up constantly, okay? Then the next ability that we're going to be doing is Debilitating Mark, and then that of course is going to be max level, and then essentially this is -10 defense, which is really good for bossing and also for mobs, or even for PvP. 20% chance to inflict stun up for 3 seconds. This is pretty good because pretty much my theory behind it is that, one, if it's a mob that is knocked down, okay, it cannot do damage to your teammates. Okay, same thing applies for PvP. If an opponent is knocked down, they cannot do damage to your teammates or to yourself. That's pretty basic understanding. It's very, very good in my opinion. It knocks down quite often, so it's very, very useful. The next thing, Divine Aura. For PvE, it's pretty useless in my opinion. It dies very quickly. Mobs target it very quickly. It's not a very good skill for PvE. However, in some certain situations where you are kiting out mobs, it does actually help to have this set to, this one, because pretty much it can reduce movement speed within a 4-meter radius of this actual spell. So you'll see it's a yellow circle, and it's good for kiting. So if you're doing PvP or PvE, this could be a good spell to have at 8. So you'll have to sacrifice some other spells to get that. So this is why I don't recommend sacrificing that for this personally. So Chain of Torment, this is one of your bread and butter damage skills. It does one of the most amount of damages in the entire game for you as a Cleric. This one we're going to use 20% chance to inflict stumble. This is essentially the same thing I was talking about earlier, where it can literally guarantee that you can CC a person every time it hits. So 20% chance to inflict that stun. It happens a lot. And for actual NPC targets, like actual PvE targets, like mobs, it's 100% chance. Okay. So for players, it's a 20% chance. And again, like I said, this is super useful. If they are knocked down, like let's say you E, if someone's low and your heal's not up, you kind of save their life, technically, right? So then you can heal them and then bam, you're good to go. So that's pretty good. And then we've got Chains of Torment affects all elements pretty much. Instead of only allowing for Earth Tolerance to do 10% damage, it does all elements. So then your debilitating mark also stacks on that and adds a debuff to it as well. And then that's pretty much about your damaging spells, except for Condemnation. I'll get into that in a little bit. Lightning Strike. Unfortunately, it's very underwhelming. It's a stagger ability. It can do quite a bit of damage with the multi-hit chance that we'll get into later. And of course, with our Imperial Lord's Grace. But at this current time, I'm currently not maxing this out. I would be adding points into it over most other spells here, because it does do quite a bit of damage, but it just right now isn't worth putting points into. The next thing, Light of Regeneration. Obviously, you need this to be max level. This is amazing skill that allows you to heal every 2 seconds, increases your defense by 100 and attack by 10%. It's insane. It actually says plus 10 attack here, but it's actually by 10%. So essentially, you always want this up at all given times, because it is a caster and party member buff. Okay, so you want to be spamming this on cooldown as much as possible. Now, the next thing that we're talking about is Condemnation. Condemnation at level 12 allows you to have a 50% chance to reset it every time you use it. So if you hit somebody, it's a coin flip. Essentially, you will get the cooldown back, and then it allows you to spam a higher damage ability than Judgment Thunder. And then it also restores 100 MP on hit. So anytime it hits something, it also restores MP. So pretty much as a cleric, you'll find yourself pretty healthy on mana quite a bit. And then we'll get into some Arcana stuff later that will actually help with mana as well. But yeah, this is a very good skill, very good damaging ability. Healing Light, we want this max level as well. Has a 25% chance to remove 1 debuff. This one is more for PvP. However, you can use this one instead. 25% regen if the healing target's max HP is under 50%. Essentially, you know, you want this ability being used when people are kind of low, but it also in general is a great skill to be using constantly. The other thing is that I've got to remove the MP cost. I don't want to stress out about my MP or my mana cost if I'm spamming heals and all that stuff. So I have it set to that. You can change this to whatever you want, though. It's up to you. Radiant Recovery. This is our biggest healing ability. Essentially, fully charged, it restores up to 2k and removes 2 debuffs. The 2 debuffs, again, this is subjective. You don't have to use it on this one. But I do like it on the mobility spell because, honestly, some of the Transcendence runs, dude, there's so much moving. And realistically speaking, if you don't have this, you're going to sit there and just get hit and hit and hit by a bunch of spells while your teammates are dying and you had to like stop to heal. So this is why you need this one on mobile skill for sure. To be honest though, this one can definitely be replaced by this one right here, which is 20% incoming healing for 10 seconds at max charge. Essentially, you're just getting 20% more healing on a target when you guys have used it. Right, so like it'll add a buff onto someone and then give them incoming healing by 20%. So that's for sure best for sure. This one's really good for PvP though. Next thing is Bolt, guys. So Bolt is actually a really cool skill. Unfortunately, a little underwhelming when it comes to prioritization of stats over our skills. Essentially, if you can get Bolt to 16 for solo play, like let's say I'm going into the daily dungeon, right? I reset all my skills and I set Bolt to 16 because I have a weapon that has Bolt and a guard that has Bolt. So it allows me to get, instead of 14, it allows me to get my Bolt to 16. And what does this do? It actually lets you go ahead and reset Bolt's cooldown on defeating an enemy. So every time you kill something with it, it resets instantly. It's pretty insane. It's pretty cool. If you do it on a big mob, for example, and you kill the mobs underneath it, if fully charged, Bolt does like 12,000 to 15,000 damage. So you can do 12 to 15k back to back very easily on Bolt. It's pretty awesome. However, unfortunately for PvE content, when you're in a group, this is not what you want to be doing. You don't want to be using Bolt, really. You want to use it on cooldown, but you do not actually want to be prioritizing it. If you manage to get this to 8, you would probably put this on the stun to help your team out with a stun, or maybe to Bolt mobile skill so that you can use it when you have downtime and you just need to move out of something. If you have any extra skill points at all, you should be putting it into Defiance. The reason why, because Defiance is pretty much a get out of jail free card. It's a 57-second cooldown, and what it does is it pretty much releases you from any stun, root, knockdown, anything like that. And then it gives you tenacity, which means that you are immune to those things for 5 seconds. Okay. And then essentially what it does at level 8, it's a 20% damage tolerance for tenacity duration, which means that you take 20% less damage. Okay. Then at level 8, it also has a 10% damage reflection, which is cool as heck. And then restores 20% HP on casting Defiance as well. So it can be a 20% heal, 20% less damage, or a 10% damage reflect on a cleanse, pretty much. So this is super important in PvE, especially, and PvP, of course, because realistically speaking, if you are dead, okay, then your whole team is dead, pretty much. You were the last person to be dying, and I know that's rich coming from watching my live streams on Twitch, because honestly, I've died quite a bit because, I mean, I'm on 180 ping, but seriously though, Defiance is super clutch. You definitely want to see it this 8. That's going to be my next go-to when it comes to my skills. And realistically speaking, I mean, you could probably get away with removing Earth's Retribution and putting it on Defiance, because it's just 20% more MP. And realistically, like, I'm pretty healthy on mana most of the time. So let's try it. Let's do it. Let's actually showcase that. Let's do probably the damage tolerance though. So that way we take 20% less damage after we pop that. But we'll see. We may end up changing it to this to make sure we're topped up. All right. So those are all your active skills. Let me go into the stigma skills real quick, because there's only a few of them that you're going to want to use. But then there's some ones that are a little bit, you know, I guess like situational. And here they are. So pretty much Absolution is one of the best spells that you have. It is a very chunky heal. You want this to get this to level 5 because it has a minus 30-second cooldown. Every minute you can cleanse 2 debuffs from people and also heal them for pretty much almost all their HP. Just kidding, obviously. But still, if you do have some buffs to incoming healing, this does increase. So I've seen this heal for like 5k, which is a huge amount of healing, realistically. So Absolution is super good. Healing Aura is one thing that you can change, to be honest with you. Like, let's say there's a lot of movement in a Transcendence run, in a Conquest run, stuff like that. You can switch this out for Eustale's Power, okay? Eustale's Power is super good because it increases your damage tolerance for 10 seconds. And at level 5, it gives you a 10% max HP shield. So that is also incredibly good, but you'll have to understand that, like, you will have to make that choice. Okay. It's very, very important that you understand that, like, playing Cleric is a very, like, flexible character, except, you'll you'll have to understand that playing cleric, you have to be flexible with like understanding your skills and when and what you should be using, and how you should be using it. Okay. However, I do think healing aura overall is a really good solution, especially when you're running transcendence, because a lot of the transcendence runs that we're doing, they're very tight knit, and it allows this healing aura to really do a lot of effectiveness as far as like maintaining people's HP high, and it also increases the healing aura radius. So that's pretty cool. The other thing that we're going to talk about, of course, light of protection is really, really good. Pretty much, I didn't know this, and I do apologize that I was not aware of this. It's a 5-minute buff that has a 3-minute cooldown. Okay, so this means that you can permanently have this buff up on all of your teammates at all times. Okay, even if one of them dies, it has a 3-minute cooldown, so you can just pop it again. But it also is a heal as well. Okay, increases your max HP by 1500 for you and your teammates, gives you +5 incoming healing and 5% movement speed for 5 minutes. Okay, super crazy clutch. Plus, if you need to use it for a heal, it heals everybody for 1500. So insane ability. I honestly can't believe I overlooked it. And then we're going to get into something now, which is something that, realistically speaking, I only use right now at this current time because I am literally on like 200 ping when I'm playing the game. Okay. So salvation is almost like a get out of jail free card. Essentially, it nullifies all damage. You can ignore mechanics for 5 seconds. Some abilities cannot be blocked, and you never want to max this out, because the reason being is that this is literally just only for you, and it's literally a very selfish ability to have. It's only used for certain situations. Of course, you definitely don't want to use this if you do not have to, but like in some mechanics in Transcendence, bro, the jumping over certain things that stun you, oh my god, you can't afford to get stunned. Not in like higher Transcendence runs. So pretty much I use this if I'm ever in a terrible situation where I cannot get out of, and I know that there is something that is going to pretty much kill the raid. Essentially, if you are dead in some of these mechanics in Transcendence, your team will wipe. You cannot afford to die. So salvation is what I use the majority of the time. However, like let's say there are some instances where there is a stagger check, okay, and you need everybody all hands on deck with that stagger check. We use power burst. Okay, power burst is 50 stagger gauge damage. It does a huge chunk of actual stagger gauge damage. It doesn't matter if this is level 5 or not. It still does only 50 stagger gauge. Okay. So this is what I use. Essentially, if I'm not using salvation, we are using power burst, because then it means that on cooldown or only in a stagger mechanic, we are using power burst to help get that stagger check for the boss. Okay, so pretty plain and simple. When you're playing cleric, you're playing support. Okay, you're healing, you're doing the stagger checks if you need to, or you're just not dying. Okay, those are the mandatory things. All right. The other thing that you can, of course, you know, if you have a lot of, let's say like you're running of heavy melee comp, like let's say you've got a Templar, Assassin, Guardian, stuff like that, it wouldn't hurt to take Summoning Resurrection. Only reason being is because you can resurrect people, and essentially it will help you res someone when you need them up, right? So this one's if you're confident, you don't need a stagger check, and you don't need to keep yourself alive, but you've got like a squishy teammate, someone maybe who's undergeared, or someone who's playing like, let's say a class that is standing in a lot of, I don't know, your DPS is just bad and they're just standing and stuff. It'll help them be rezzed. Okay. So that's pretty much the way to look at it. Other than that, guys, everything else is extremely subjective. It's going to depend on your style of gameplay. It's going to depend on what you're doing. PvP, you may want to take Root. You may want to take Voice of Doom for the anti-heal. Earth Punishment is not very good in my opinion, but some people are using it. It does help that it does have a level 5 guaranteed crit on Condemnation. Essentially, this is like for PvP, you've got like teammates that are backing you up, so you don't have to actually have too much, you know, sustain, essentially. You know, it all depends on the composition of what you're doing and all that stuff. All right, guys, real quick, passives. I'm going to show you guys the 3 spells that are actually not that important. First, okay, Imperium's Lord's Grace. We do not have enough block at the current time to benefit from it too much. You'll get that much later in the game once you start rolling your gear to actually give you successful block, a much higher block. Prayer of Concentration, even though it is good, it does give you an HP shield. You'll get this leveled up through your Daevanion board, so you don't want to put points into it. Heal Block, same thing. It's good for PvP. If you want to put more stats into it, you can. The other thing is that, yeah, that's pretty much about it, actually. All these 3 are just kind of like not really that amazing until later into the game, and you have more points in your Daevanion. So essentially, you don't want to prioritize these. Your priority is, realistically, if you're playing solo, you're leveling. You want to make sure that you are using Warm Benediction, 20% more HP. Immortal Veil, super important, increases your defense. Healing Enhancement increases your healing. And then, of course, one that's really good is Imperium's Lord Grace. When you have a dot, like these 2 abilities right here, you will have a 50% chance to deal extra damage on that target. This is pretty much almost like a 50% chance to do a multi-hit, and we'll get into multi-hit later, but pretty much this can proc multiple times and give you a bunch of free damage. And essentially you can do to 2 to 3k damage off of nothing. You're pretty much just auto attacking or doing anything, and you'll get like bonus damage for free. So very good for actually in general just doing content and doing solo content, PvP, PvE, whatever you want to do. The next thing is, of course, this is like your bread and butter for grouping. 22% at this current time for attack damage. Essentially 22% buff for attack to anybody while your HP is above 75%. Insane. You need this. It's important as hell. It's super important. So, all right, guys. So survival willpower is super good because pretty much you get a crazy damage tolerance if you are impacted by a impact type status, which what that means is like if you are stunned, not silenced. I don't believe silence works. Stunned, rooted, or knocked down, or anything like that, you will get a 42% damage tolerance buff. Okay, and it increases your status effect resistance by 34%. I believe status effect, what that is it's bleeds, you know, damage over time abilities, stuff like that. It increases your resistances to those types of damages. Impact type is more of a like a direct, you know, knockdown, stun, fear, root, whatever you want to call it, all that kind of stuff. So it will help you with that. It's a 2-minute cooldown though, okay, but it is a very big, you know, pretty much save your ass kind of passive. Very, very useful and very, very nice as far as I'm aware of. All right, guys, so I've looked at all of the cleric leaderboards. Every single cleric is maxing their Daevanion boards in this order, essentially. Okay, so Trinial is the #1 priority. The reason why is because it offers multi-hit chance and multi-hit resist. Okay, there's a lot of classes that do multi-hit and bosses can multi-hit. Essentially, the reason why we want multi-hit though is because multi-hit happens to proc very easily on our lightning strike because it hits so often, and then also multi-hit procs off of our passive, which is Imperial Lord's Grace. This is what I was saying before, is that you can do a bunch of extra damage from just passively hitting a mob or a boss or whatever. Essentially, it's insane how much damage it really does. So this is what I have for Trinial at this current time. We have almost maxed it out. It is not maxed out. What we're doing, by the way, in general, if you guys don't know, I have a Daevanion board guide up. We're focusing each skill level up first. All of the skill level ups while pathing to multi-hit chance. That is what we're doing, okay? We are trying to ignore as much MP as possible. And then we're also trying to avoid, at this current time, since we are not focusing on PvP, we're trying to avoid critical hit resist, and yeah, just try and get as much of these done as possible. Trinial is actually one of the biggest boards in the entire thing, so unfortunately it takes quite a long time. We do not have anything actually in Vizel at this current time. Unfortunately, making the switch to this really just made it so I could not use this. So yeah, essentially right now we've got damage tolerance, damage boost, and damage tolerance on Zickle, while also avoiding almost every MP as much as possible. And then we've got our passives up, our skills up as much as possible. Now, the same thing applies with Nezukin as well. You could actually probably justify removing combat speed and not going combat speed on Nezukin until Trinial is maxed out. But in my opinion, combat speed is pretty cool. Cooldown reduction is super clutch on Cleric because of course it reduces our cooldowns. We can get those heals in a lot faster, our bigger cooldowns a lot faster. So in my opinion, I think you could probably get away with not using combat speed, but going ahead and still getting every active and passive as much as possible, while ignoring, of course, you want to ignore healing reduction one. So the heal cut one, you want to get rid of that as much as possible. Heal block, we can like literally just refund that. So we don't even want to use heal block as much as possible. So if you see it, go ahead and refund it, because you definitely don't want to use it as much as possible. If you're using PvE content, of course. If you're doing PvP content, obviously heal block, getting that up as high as possible is very good. And I would say that it would be beneficial to go ahead and try and do that as much and as often as possible. So without further ado, guys, that's my Daevanion board. If you guys need me to, if you want screenshots of it, you can come to my Twitch stream. I'll show you guys live on Twitch, and you guys we can theory craft some more stuff if you guys want. For our PvE, obviously this is going to be as soon as you get some PvE points into your Daevanion. I've got boss damage tolerance, prioritizing that first, so I do not die as much as possible. Damage is not something that you want to focus on too much on Cleric in the middle stages of the game, but then later on you can start to focus on your damage as a Cleric a little bit more as the game progresses and people's gear gets better. For Asfel, this is for PvE. This is for PvP. PvP, you want to prioritize getting your damage tolerance as much as possible. You want to be as tanky as possible in PvP. You do not want to be focusing on damage at first, because you want to stay alive as much as possible in PvP. Yo, real quick, guys, for Arcana, the way it works, you get these Transcendence cards. Essentially, they're just cards that you equip that give you plus 40 item levels when you have them on green, and plus 20 when you have them on the common ones. The way it works is that each of these cards, you can level them up to level 2. Like, let's say I enhance this and go max level. Unfortunately, I can't get it all the way to level 2. Oh wait, actually, it can be level 3. So it adds stats like Defiance and then Healing Light, adds an additional level to them. And then at max level, they add even more benefits to it. So I was just 1910, now I'm 1912. And that's about it. Essentially, that's how Arcana works. You get these cards, you want to +2 them when they're green. Oh, I'm sorry, +3 them when they're green, +2 them when they're common, when you first get them, because they give you a lot of passive stats. And then they also have set bonuses. So Magic Armor, for example, I'll make my camera smaller so you guys can see that. Immediately recover 1500 mana when MP is 20% or less. Okay, so that's how that works. It's pretty cool. You can stack them up depending on which ones you get. This one's Magic Armor. There's a set of 4 that you can get for that one. This one is Magic Armor as well. This one is Primal Vigor, plus 60 PvE attack when HP is 70% or more, 150 PvE attack when HP is 70% or more. So in general, like let's say I'm doing Arcana for Cleric, we would want Magic Armor. Like look at Magic Armor is plus 100 PvE defense when MP is 50% or more. So Obviously, like this is like insane, right? So we want to be able to try and get as many of our magic armor cards as possible in each slot. Okay, so that's what you would want to do. And plain and simple, that's the way it works with Arcana. And then there's more stuff that I'm going to get into later. And that's about it. I'll get into that later on in another video. Thank you guys so much for watching the Cleric Guide. If it helped you at any point in time, be sure to like the video, subscribe for more content like this. And if you guys want to see that Cleric gameplay in action, I can upload videos about Cleric gameplay if you guys want. Or even better, you should check out my live stream. I'm live every day on Twitch and here on YouTube. Thank you so much again for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace out.